Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be showing off the brand new counter fairies in action. There's going to be a few different really cool cards. So really important, Harvest Angel of Doom. What does it do? Well, it searches out your Horn of Heaven, which is an okay card. But what it does that's really good is it allows you to have one negate and complete your penned scale. So we see Ties of the Brethren activated, which is just going to get out double fairies. Now, the other players playing a synchro deck, if you specifically have Battle for Artemis, every time a counter trap card is activated, you can draw one. With Guardian Ariadne, you no longer go minus with your counter traps. And then with Barrier Statue, well, this card honestly should be banned, just like a lot of the other you can't special summon Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But yeah, once this card is out, and the interesting thing is the opponent is actually using Time Burning Machine. That's how he drew two cards. It wasn't like a custom game mode. This card is pretty good. Obviously, turn one, yeah, it's a little bit minus, but it has that potential to go for the extra summons. So any negation of summon could help out. So Horn of Heaven is activated on Star Synchron. He's going to be able to draw a card. And since he tributed with the brand new card, Horn of Heaven, on Harvest Angel of Doom, it's able to place itself in the Pendulum Zone, allowing you to complete your Pendulum Scale really easy in the counter fairy deck. You only really need to run like one Horn of Heaven, one black Horn of Heaven, because how counter fairies work, basically if you get the ball rolling, you're winning the game. Usually don't need to max out on multiple copies of Horn of Heaven because you don't really want to be tributing your monsters in general. You basically just have one monster and you keep it there forever because you negate every single play that you do. So he's going to be able to use that other effect of the Pendulum effect, where he's going to be able to add a black Horn of Heaven. The Pendulum variant of the counter fairies, once you get out your monsters, like, you're usually going to keep them or you lose. It's very rare that you're going to pen summon again. Yeah, maybe you can pull it off like once or twice in a game, but it's not like a generic Pendulum deck where you just keep on busting out your monsters for free. But again, you're going to be able to search out that black Horn of Heaven. Now, once you go for the black Horn of Heaven, it's usually GG at this point, especially against a synchro deck, because, well, he can only go for light monsters. Now we're seeing Celestial Parshath come up, but Lost Wind was activated, so it's going to negate its effect and also lower its stats, so he can't get over the Stardust Trail, potentially. But the Rebirth of Parshath is going to say no to that and bring out the Sacred Arch, and he's going to draw another additional card off of Bountiful. And at this point, with 4 back rows, and he doesn't have to pay because he has Guardian Ariadne, obviously he's not going to let that go through, and every single time that he negates a card, it's just win harder and harder, and on top of that, he's going to have that black Horn of Heaven. He knew he had that. Even though he's going to be able to draw 2 cards, is he going to be able to compete with the following turn? Let's find out. So he's going for the Sanctum of Parshath. Going to go ahead and reset some cards, and he's going to activate that effect, getting some more additional value. Torrential Tribute's activated, but he can't stop that. But he does have Divine Punishment ready, so he's going to go ahead and Psalm, no to that. And remember, he doesn't have to pay any life points because of Guiding Ariadne over here. And Sacred Arch Air Knight Parshath is here, so that's still going to be a pretty decent card to have. He's going to go ahead and smack him for some damage. Parshath's going to activate its effect, getting an additional card. Now he's got Honest in his hand, he's got Solemn, he's got Divine Punishment, and Rebirth. So this makes it so when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you get to reveal one. You don't even have to discard and pay. It's just basically reveal a counter trap in your hand, and then you get to shuffle that card back into the deck, and then summon another Parshath monster. It's definitely a very uphill battle for a synchro deck. But remember, he gets to draw 2 cards every single turn. It's one of the newer Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I haven't covered in actual gameplay. But Time Rendering Morganite, a lot of people are playing it, and you might see it in a lot of deck profiles very, very soon. So he's going to go ahead and activate that effect. Go ahead and recycle some cards. He's going to get that effect, get additional value. Now he's activating the Harvest Angel. Remember that you don't need to play multiple copies to go ahead and recycle, because you only really need to play a few cards, because you're going to reset some of those counter traps with different names, and you're going to place them on the top of your deck in any order, but you're going to search it out immediately, so it doesn't matter. So that way you don't really go minus. You don't want to play like triple copies of each. You can recycle them, but pretty much you use them like once or twice, and usually the game is over at some point. So now that you guys have seen it in action, big shout outs to Biohazard for his deck. I'm going to give you guys a deck profile. So highlighting the newer cards, this one isn't specific to counter fairies, but it works very well in counter fairies, as well, you don't really have too much ability to have draw power in the deck. You can run things like Extrav, but Ties of the Brethren is just a GG. If you open up with this, it is so good. Being able to special summon double monsters from your deck, specifically locking your opponent out, and then you can even go for like maybe Honest, because it has this effect where you get to bring them out, but you can't conduct your battle phase, which doesn't really matter. But having that Honest in your hand as a surprise mechanic to your opponent, or just letting your opponent know, hey, you're not going to be able to attack me, it becomes a lot more difficult for them to get out over your Bountiful Ornaments or your Barrier Statue or your key cards that are out on the board. And I guess the Sacred Parsha can be an okay card, but usually you can just bring them out for free with the deck. But here is the deck profile. I'll go ahead and mouse over it really quick just so you guys have the deck profile. But the main highlight is honestly Harvest Angel of Doom. And the reason why is it gives you basically 2 negates for 1 card, and it completes your Pendulum Scale if you just want to go for an additional like summon. But with this card, it does give you that additional summon anyways with the secondary effect, because you get all of those effects, which is like you get to draw 2 and you get the additional summon. So the whole pen mechanic is not really super relevant for this deck, but it is technically there. This is a card that I haven't got to talk about, but we'll talk about it now over the deck profile. So it's called Dragon King's Aura. So it says when your opponent activates a monster effect, you get to negate the activation if you destroy the card. Then you can apply the following effect. You get to banish 1 monster from your hand, and if you do, special summon the monster that was destroyed and sent to the graveyard to your field, but negate its effects. A lot of times, again, like I mentioned before, you don't really need to use Harvest Angel of Wisdom more than once. Like if you get your Horn of Heaven, Black Horn of Heaven, sometimes you're drawing into this card. It's not super helpful, or if you just maybe don't need the Honest, because Honest used to be really good back in the day, but like you can just use it for that and just get whatever monster that you know, your opponent you know, had the effect negated. So yeah, that's pretty good. I think it's an okay card. At the end of the day, it is a counter trap card because it is counter fairies. And there's also Fallen Sanctuary. This card lets you, when this card is activated, you get to set a Sanctuary in the sky or 1 spell stop trap that mentions that we're using it really for that other fact. We don't play Sanctuary in the sky. It's weird that there's so much support for counter fairies and Sanctuary in the sky. Well, it's fairies in general, but we don't really use them for that. You can also banish a fairy monster from graveyard, target effect monster opponent controls, and you get to negate the effect. So it's still like an okay-ish card. Then we have the Sanctum. This lets you recycle your fairies or counter traps. More than likely, that's what you're going to be doing, because you're not going to get like 3 fairy monsters in the grave. Usually at that point, you've probably lost the game in counter fairies. For the most part, yeah, because this whole deck is basically, you get out 1 or 2 monsters. If you get Ties of the Brethren, it's like a GG. That card is so incredibly powerful in the deck. And then you have a bunch of Solemns to negate your opponents. And remember, these cards can be recycled, so yeah. But just multiple copies because of the extravagance. The only important cards, honestly, are going to be these 2 for the most part. This card can be used to stall, but if you're like exceeding in this deck, you're going to go kind of minus. But it could be okay earlier on if you're like, dude, I need to negate all my opponent's effects. And maybe you just got unlucky, you didn't draw your counter trap cards, right? So that card is good. I would play 3 of these cards because this card's fantastic in it. But I'll go ahead and again mouse over the cards really quick for the rest of the deck profile. But definitely know, guys, your thoughts on this deck with the new addition of Harvest Angel of Doom. Do you guys think the deck is really good now? Honestly, I would say that the deck, if you open up with specifically this card, the deck wins. Like, it wins so hard now, especially with this, because you're basically getting double negates very, very soon because you tribute and then you get to set 1. But there's a lot of different decks that can absolutely destroy you if you go second in this deck. It's definitely, you gotta go first, and I think that's the biggest problem with counter fairies is like going second. You're gonna have a bad time usually. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell so you don't miss out when we cover some more new Yu-Gi-Oh decks very soon. Big shout outs once again for Biohazard's build, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and I'm out. Peace.